All right. All right. So, yeah, so it's 11 o'clock. Let's get started to the next session of PLMW. After Joe's excellent talk, you know how to ask questions and so forth. So now, let me give it away to one of the leading lights here in the PL community. Michael Greenberg could tell us how to give a good talk.
Oh, goodness. Well, hello. Thank you for coming. I'm going to talk to you about how to give talks. But I want to start by welcoming you to POPL the same way that Joe did. For many of you, it might be your first POPL. Welcome. Kind of fun. It's not usually this exciting with like the sprinklers, et cetera, but exciting things do happen. I wanted a quick show of hands. How many people have read a POPL paper? Okay, I'm going to call that very nearly 100%. I'm very proud of Ranjit, who raised his hand. Ranjit has read a POPL paper. That's great. So this is, I have a weird question. Like, we've all read POPL papers. So like, why are we here? Like, you could get the papers. The papers are often available before the deadline. If you're really earnest about it, you can go to archive and get the papers before they're even submitted to POPL. So like, you could get all the details, all the juicy technical bits there. So like, why are we here? No, we got networking for the food? No, I expect that from Derek, but not from you, Ranji. So okay, networking, right? It's cool to be around other people. But then, like, why are there talks at the conference? Like, we could just get together and network, but like, we do this weird talk stuff. Why do we have talks at conferences? What are talks for? It's not rhetorical. Like, what are talks for? Yes, please. Okay, so talks can communicate information effectively. Okay, cool. Yeah, I agree with that. That's a good point. Yeah.
It's a more effective way of fixing it in your head, keeping you aware of it, than just the existence of the paper.
Okay, so there's this argument that humans learn from spoken stuff better. I mean, the whole like learning styles thing has been pretty soundly debunked. But like, okay, yeah, it's nice to hear that like, it's nice to hear stuff. Yeah, what do you got?
They say it's an ad to read the paper.
Ooh, I love this. So yeah, right. So this is an ad. A talk is an advertisement. This is right. Talks exist because they're a way for us to focus attention. They're a way for us to bring attention to our work. Right? We saw Joe's count 80-something papers. I know people who, you know, they sit down. They used to be sit down with the paper proceedings, and they read the abstract of every single talk at POPL. And the people I know who do this have like crazy encyclopedic knowledge of what has happened, and they're great people to talk to for your references. But you may not be that way. I'm not wired that way. I can't do it that way. So talks are a way for you to figure out what you should be paying attention to. Talks are about capturing attention. Cool. Now, there's a problem. And I think fellow Columbia High School graduate Pras Michel put it best in the foundational Fuji's song, How Many Mics? You're competing for attention. POPL has 2 tracks of talks, right? And never mind all the workshops before, and of course the secret, most important hallway track. And there are other still further secret tracks one can unlock as you start to meet more people. More things are happening than are even happening in the hotel. This is a big human endeavor, a big human community. And competing for attention is hard. If you want people to pay attention to the work that you did, you have to convince them about it. You have to show them that what you did is valuable. Their attention is valuable, and they value it, and it is your job to make sure that they're willing to apply their attention to what you're doing. A good talk must communicate why it's valuable. If it doesn't, people won't care about what you did. Okay, so a good talk is a valuable talk, and we're going to use this value framework throughout my talk. But I think we can give more than just saying, oh, a good talk is valuable. What is valuable? We'll talk about that a little bit more at the end. I first want to talk about 3 things that I think every talk has to do to be a good or valuable talk. And after we talk about these things, we'll talk a little bit about technology and sort of the way that we make talks today. And then we'll return to this value framework, and I'll go well beyond my brief of how to give a good talk, and I'll just talk about value because I have the stage and I want to talk about it. Okay, make sense? Everyone clear what we're going to do today? So this is the 3 things a talk has to do. It has to inform the audience about what you've done. In our community, the norm is that your talk must educate or teach the audience something. And most contentiously, your talk must entertain the audience in some way. So let's dig deeper into each of these ideas. So inform. We already heard from this person over here that a talk is an advertisement. This is, I think for many people, a very uncomfortable thought. Right? Advertisement sounds like you're engaging in marketing or being deceptive or like having to be particularly capitalist about what you're doing. I mean, I've said the word value now probably a dozen times. Who is this guy? But inform advertising is the same thing, right? You've done something. You have some piece of work. You have achieved some insight. You've done something. For people to care about it, step one is for them to know about it. So like Joe mentioned in his talk of like how to POPL, that like, okay, you might learn about the existence of an area. Right? If you've worked in an area, part of your job is making sure people know and care and value that area. That's a thing that you have to do. So a good talk has to inform people about that. Now, there's a problem with that. And I think the way that everyone addresses this, Joe already talked about this, which is that a talk cannot be the whole thing that you did. Your paper is 20 pages, maybe 15,000 words, something like that. That's a lot, and you don't have that much time. So there's two sayings I've heard applied to this that I think help focus your efforts on how to produce the talk. The first is due to my advisor, Benjamin Pierce, and this is a Zen Buddhist koan. Koans are sort of like short stories or short phrases that are meant to point the mind towards enlightenment. And in this case, the phrase is, pointing at the moon is not the moon. What's great about koans is you can sound so sagacious when you say it. You can sound like an absolute genius. So I should first say this is really a Zen Buddhist thing. This is not a thing the Buddha said. But you can like read it from the teachings. It's in there. But in Buddhism, it's used to mean that like, look, you should not confuse the things we say about enlightenment with enlightenment itself. These are two different ideas. And okay, removing ourselves from Buddhism for a moment, a talk cannot be the actual paper. A talk is pointing at the paper. Your job is, it's deictic. Your job is to point out, here is this thing. Now, you can't point something out by being the whole thing. You have to select features of it to point out and features of it to leave out. Your talk is pointing at the moon. You want to point well at the moon, at the feature of the moon that will help people see the moon and want the moon for some reason, to value it. Another saying that I haven't heard many people say, but it comes from Jorge Luis Borges, is that the map is not the territory. Right? The talk is some schematic of here's what I've done, let me show it to you in this abstract way. The work itself is not even the paper on some level, depending on the kind of work that you do. But in any case, the talk is at several moves of abstraction from the actual work that you've done, and it's your job to sort of give people that map, give them the right level of abstraction so that they can know about it. There are two reasons why this is the case, why these sayings apply. The first is pure time. Like I said, you've got 20 minutes. Your conference paper is, let's say, 20 pages. In the new SIG-Plan format, you get about 15,000 words. If you just read that at like a decent clip, not at my like insane, why is this guy talking so fast clip? I'm sorry. This is like me actually going slow. I don't know. That'll take you about an hour and a half, somewhere around there. And like, can you imagine if that's how we did it? Like somebody gets up there and they take out their paper, and like whenever there's a figure, maybe they put it up, or maybe they'll just describe the figure to you. That'd be kind of fun. And they sort of just go through it. It, to me, sounds like the most inhumane possible way to communicate scientific results. There are academic fields that work this way. In the humanities, people will legit read a paper. To me, this is one of the deep ironies that the humanities have like the least humane way of delivering results to people. Whereas we're like, oh no, you've got to connect, you got to have slides, be dynamic. How interesting. I'm sure one could think a lot more thoughts about that. But the gist of it is you've got 20 minutes. So nah, you're not going to do it. You don't have time to talk about everything. That's the first reason. There's a second, like kind of fundamental reason, which is that people don't care yet. Right? Like, how could they? They don't know what you did. They have no idea what you've done, and they haven't read the paper. They might not even have read the abstract. They've seen the title, or they went into the session for something else. And now your talk's next, and like, all right, well, they're in. Why don't they stick around for a minute? So you have so little time to make somebody care about what you're doing. So this brings me to the first concrete rule that I'm going to give you, which is that you must motivate what you're doing at the absolute very beginning. Why should people pay attention? What is valuable about your work? What are they going to take away from this saying, gosh, good thing I stuck around for that whole talk? Because they don't have to. Okay, so what is valuable? This is, I think, sort of a core question. And we're going to talk a lot more about it in the end. But the most direct forms of value are things that I think just about everybody cares about. Money and other resources, power, control, human time, safety, justice. There are other things you can put up here, but these are like the high-level concerns that if you go to like the person on the street, this is a thing that they're going to care about. If you can appeal to these, this is a thing that will appeal to people. Putting myself in your shoes, I remember how I would have responded to this as a grad student. I would not have responded well. I would have disliked this slide. and disliked the speaker for saying these things. And that's fair. You don't need to like me. That's totally fine. Let's think for a second. Okay, power. What could PL possibly have to say about power? And especially today, forget about it. I don't want to hear about this crap. I get that perspective. What are the high-level motivations of PL work? No, I don't want it from a professor. I want it from one of the students. What's PL work for? I don't think novelty is an end in itself. I think people want that to be true, and I don't think it's true. Yes?
Maybe some works focus on creating more efficient systems, so that's a time, like the human time aspect.
Love it, yes. Efficiency is a core PL value. There's a huge amount of work on programming languages about how do we do things efficiently. Efficiency addresses a bunch of things. It addresses resources. You spend less resources when things are efficient. It addresses control. It addresses power in the sense that when things run quickly, when things are fast, new avenues of opportunity open up to us. It addresses human time, probably the single most precious resource we have. So cool, efficiency is a core value. If you can make it clear that you're making something efficient, then people who care about that thing will care about your work. What else? Yes? Correctness, love it. It's like you are literally looking at my presenter notes. I love it. So correctness is, I think, maybe one of the other fundamental PL values. Getting things right. Now, correctness addresses many of these concerns also. Correctness addresses resources. Incorrect results waste resources. It addresses control. You make sure you're doing exactly the right thing, no more, no less. And it can affect safety as well. Depending on the systems you work on, it can affect justice. What else?
Communication, expressiveness, like getting your idea into the computer.
Phenomenal. So the last one, these are literally the three that I had, and I love that we got them in the exact order that I have them, which says something very deep about community values, which we'll return to, and like how this works. So the last value I think that is the core PL value is expressivity, how we say things. And this affects control, and it affects human time. And look, the fact of the matter is it affects resources, but not always in the good direction. And often we think that's worth it because human time is far more precious than kilowatt hours. So these are the core PL concerns. If your talk is addressing one of these, efficiency, correctness, expressivity, then people can relate to that. Now, they'll care about the domain that it's in. You have to sort of position yourself appropriately. But you need to hit these beats very early. People need to understand what they're going to get out of it. OK. These very high-level things can be a little trickier. So there's another framing that I really like, which is the problem-solution framing. So something is impossible, we thought, but we can do it this way. This is great. This is a great result. People love this kind of stuff. Something is slow or inefficient or wastes resources, and we can make it good. Another great framing. Something is error-prone, but we can show how to detect, avoid, or prevent errors. Classic PL, that's type systems, right? Something is complex, hard to understand, difficult to use, but if you look at it slantways, we can see how to do it more simply. Another classic PL thing. And then the last one, this is my favorite. Something is correct. Guess what? It's not. Let me show you what's wrong with it, and then ideal world, best world, here's the right way to do it. This is the correct way to do these things. This is, I think, one of the greatest things that PL work can do, because fixing correctness, this is how we build this scaffold of rightness on fallible human understanding. This is like the cool achievement that logic and programming languages and other formal fields have attained in the 20th and 21st centuries. It is amazing. Like David Hilbert would never. So very, very cool. These are great framing. So can your work fit in one of these framings? If you can get this up front, you can say, this thing's wrong, here's how we fix it. This thing's slow, here's how we make it fast. People will care about what you're doing, and they will value it. So you must begin here. You have to tell people, what is the thing that is wrong? What is the thing that they believe in is a problem or is not there, is not all the way there, and how are we going to fix it? And the sooner they get that, the sooner they can decide that your talk is valuable. OK, so that's what Inform is about. It's about planting the seed of a value in your audience's mind. Can they see how this will be useful in any way? Step 2 is to educate. And this is specific to computer science in general and PL in particular. that this is, I think, a key value of our talks, and it's not necessarily true in other communities. But like, look, we're all in academia on some level for the same reason. We're dorks. That's like how we got here, right? So this is the name of the game. People want to learn things. This is like one of the essential dorky things that people have. This is how I got into it. So like, you got to teach them something. People want something to take away. So your work has some insight, something, I mean, maybe the novelty, the new thing, or maybe just a new way of looking. The thing isn't new, but the way of describing it is new. Or the understanding we can get from it is new, or the relationship to another thing is new. There's something there. Cool, and that's what got you the paper. That's awesome. But the key thing you have to think about for the talk is, what is the thing that you've realized that other people can profit from, can derive value from? What is the valuable insight? You've only got 20 minutes, so it's got to be in there. This has to be a part of your talk, and we're now running out of talk time, right? You've spent a bunch of time motivating what you're doing, situating it, explaining the problem, explaining the solution. Somewhere in there you've got to sneak in, here's a new thing that you can take with you. Joe talked about, oh, if you can learn 20 things at POPL, that's a good run. And I agree, that is a good run. The best talks will always do this. They will give you something that you can take with you. And so the second rule I have is that you have to teach something portable. Portable here is kind of actually a stand-in for value. Portable means someone else could possibly care about it. They could want to take it with them. If the insight is only about your thing, that only you use, then the community value around that's going to be lower, right? That's just your thing. What is the thing that they already care about that they can relate it to? Getting this kind of generality in the thing that you teach feels absolutely critical to me. This is what makes an audience member feel like they have gotten something valuable from your talk and that they'll take it away. So PL is a techniques field, broadly, not a problems field. So oftentimes the value that we provide is teaching something new about a technique. I think this is fine. This is, I think, a value in the PL community. But if you can teach something new about a whole solution space or a whole problem, I think that's even more valuable. But the high-level thing I want to show here is that you can't include all of the bits that you've discovered, all of the novelty that you have, all of the insight, all of the technical work. That can't make it in. So the bits that make it in might not even be the key technical result. It's the thing that someone can take, the valuable thing. That's what goes in your talk. Now, Joe had this slide of like mean audience understanding over time. And after the talk, he was like, you looked so angry my whole talk. That's actually just my resting face. I should play poker or something. But this slide, actually, I was angry at, because this sucks. This is not an appropriate outcome. Like, if this is happening, then I don't think that's a very good talk. Like, at the very least, it should dip back up. Right? Like there should be something where like, okay, fine, maybe I had to talk about something about a narrow technical domain of practice. Maybe my arch nemesis needs to hear a message for a second. And okay, now let's pop up and talk about technical results. Okay, that's fine, right? Everybody has their own agendas when they give talks. But it should not be hovering at the low bit. If that's happening, I think you're not getting all the value out of your talk that you could be, and you're not giving people the value that they could get, right? They're not going to value your talk. Like by the time you've hit like here, like they're on their phones, man. Like they're done. So you can't spend a long time there. So this may be descriptive, but it should not be normative, right? Like your talks should not do this. Okay, cool. Enough. Sorry, I got riled up. Okay, cool. So like, I should say, and this is I think maybe the most contentious point that I'm going to make about this, that like we are not just dorks. Like we're also people, and people like to have fun. And like, did you know that your talk could be fun? Like this is an option available to you. So like this is a controversial point because it seems frivolous. Like, aren't we serious academics? Like, don't we write papers in like the third person plural, or maybe not? Maybe if we're European, like not using contractions or the first person at all. Like, isn't that the way we're supposed to be doing it? I'm like, I guess. I don't think that's right. Like, if the human has to be left out of the academic endeavor or the computer science endeavor, the PL endeavor, then I want to be left out. Like, I don't want to be part of a PL community that doesn't value the humanity of the members of that community. And part of that involves respecting people's time and attention. And like, yes, there's an opportunity for this to be good to us in an immediate human way, to be entertaining. And to not take up that opportunity is to fail ourselves in some sense. That's the noble framing. Cool, that's like the, gosh, what a world we could have. The canny framing is, you are competing for attention. People could go to another session. They could just skip the session entirely. Entertainment, performance, is a tool that you can use to hold audience attention. A talk is a performance. It's a very particular kind of one with its own mores and norms and sort of ways that we do it, and there's rooms to push it. People do all kinds of funny stuff. Like any performance, your talk could be scripted or it could be improvised. That's all fine, but it must be practiced. It doesn't matter what kind of talk you're doing. You have to know what you're doing. You cannot be just figuring it out for the first time when you're up there. That is not valuing people's time. Okay, so like how can you give a good performance? This is like the how to human aspect of this. Like Joe was like, how do you introduce yourself to people? And it's like, we're all adults, man. And now I'm saying, well, how do you perform for people? It's like, well, maybe you weren't a theater kid or don't have that theater kid energy, but there's like a lot of different ways to give a good performance. You can do it with humor. You can do it with sincerity. You can do it with just like fevered excitement. This is not my favorite one, but you can do it. You can do it calmly just by like nailing the pacing and timing and structure. Right? You don't have to be a showboater, but you can also do it riding on pure, raw charisma. There's a lot of different ways to do it. Some of these ways might come to you more naturally than others. And you're just going to have to use your strengths. Like in the theater world, there's this idea that you have to find your clown. And I don't think you should find your clown for your professional talks. Like there should be no clowning. Like you don't want my clown up here anyway. Like it's not what you want. But you need to find your strengths. You need to find which of these approaches are going to be the ones that work for you. And like this may feel bad when I tell this to you. Like, oh, you're going to have to perform. Right? Like, none of those may feel natural to you. Like there's a broad stereotype of computer scientists as not having the most robust social skills. You may have heard this before. And so like, okay, like, oh, I got to use raw charisma? Like but that may not be you, that's fine. Whatever it is, you're going to have to practice. And if it doesn't come naturally to you, that means you're going to have to practice more. You're going to have to give a lot of talks. I mean, at conferences, okay, well, those are kind of rate limited. You're not going to get that many of those opportunities. So really, you want to be giving a ton of talks well before your first conference talk. If your first conference talk is your first talk, like that is nerve-wracking, and I'm sorry to point it out, but like that's rough. Like you want to have experience getting up in front of large groups of people. This is, I don't know, maybe 50, 60 people. A full POPL session could be 100 or more, depending on the topic. Like you want to be, if not comfortable, like able to stand up there and deliver the performance that you've practiced. And the way to do that is by performing all the time. So you need to find the regional workshops, you need to find the other groups you can visit, you need to make sure that you're giving talks in your group, you need to make sure that you're getting a bunch of different audiences and working with them and getting feedback from them and adapting. I think you can also practice by watching a lot of talks. I think watching is a great way to do it. I think it could be great to say, take the framework that I'm giving you here and apply it to the talks, not to Cuddling's talk next, but of course to other talks at POPL, to see like, well, how are they achieving these ends if they are? And then like, look, there's going to be talks that do a good job that don't apply my framework. And there's going to be talks that apply my framework, and you're still like, I definitely could have fallen asleep if I wanted to. So that's fine, but like you're going to want to watch and learn and think about how could I do this? Put this on, can I wear these clothes? Can I do it the way that this person is doing it? You have to just do it a lot. I want to go a little deeper on that. Your talks in many ways are your public persona to the community. You're going to network like Joe told you to network. You're going to meet a bunch of different people in the hallway track. You're going to meet people at meals. You're going to meet people, whispering in sessions like, what does that even mean? What is that guy talking about? So you're going to talk to a bunch of people, but the people who will see you most, your most public persona, is you giving a talk. That is when you have the community's attention. We established this up front. This is why we have conferences, is so we can grab the whole community's attention. And so that means when you're giving a talk, that's when they are receiving information about who you are. If you pursue academia, you're going to give something called a job talk, which is like possibly one of the most condensed forms of anxiety that exists in the world. Because what is a job talk supposed to do? Obviously, you have to communicate strong technical content, show you're a good computer scientist. But you're also going to have to show that you'll be a good colleague. You have to show who you are. It's like you're very much trying to put yourself into a 60-minute package where you know in those 60 minutes you'll be getting hostile questions from people you've never met. So that's rough. You're going to want to be able to give a good job talk. And to do that, you're going to have to be able to give a good talk, and you're going to have to give a lot of talks. You're going to have to sort of build up that persona. But to return to what I just said, and every talk is a job talk. Every talk, the community is receiving information about who you are and what you do and how you do it. So it is very much incumbent on you to do that well. The community is going to receive it. And it's a rough word, but frankly, to judge you based on your performance. It's a thing they're going to watch. Your talks are, for the most part, you. I am so sorry to point this out. This is like the worst thing to hear, I think. Like, oh, so you're telling me it's even higher stakes than I thought. Sick. So I'm very sorry to point it out, but I feel like I have to because it is a very true thing. Now, I'm going to say up front, people are gracious and people are realistic. Nobody expects a student's first talk at a workshop or at POPL or anywhere to be a bombshell, bringing down the house. Everyone's like, oh, how do we get more of that research? That's not anybody's expectation. But there is some expectation that you give a competent talk and that you improve over time, and people will notice people who give good talks. And that research, I think, gets cited more, gets interacted with more. I think that the benefits of speaking well are very, very real. So I think it's really worth investing the time to do it well, even if it's uncomfortable and even if it's not the thing that you want for yourself. If you want to be in this community, it is something that will help your stature in the community. The rewards are real. Okay, cool. So I've given this three-part framework of what a good talk does, what a valuable talk does. It informs people about the value proposition. What's broken, how do we fix it? What's impossible, how do we do it? So you start by telling people, what could you be getting out of this thing? What could the valuable thing here be? And then you literally deliver value in the talk by teaching them something. You give them something they can take home. They get a little party favor from your talk that says, oh, I didn't know you could do that with logical relations, or whatever it is. Something. And then lastly, you are going to entertain. You're going to perform. You're going to value their attention by doing a good job because you've practiced and rehearsed and are able to deliver the things to the best of your ability. And then you are giving them something valuable, that entertainment, that presentation, that performance. And you get to then, in exchange, hold their valuable attention. So all of these are, to my mind, simply the consequences of treating the entire enterprise as about your talk should be valuable. Your talk should give someone something of value. Okay, so I want to spend a little bit of time talking about the technology we use to give talks, and then I'm going to talk more about this value framework that I have, because I'm mic'd up and I want to talk about it. Okay, so I have not until now really talked about the tools we use to give talks. Slides, the various remotes people have. People do all kinds of gimmicks. And I haven't done that because I honestly think it's just like, it's your business, right? A talk, like the slides for your talk, are pixels on the screen, and the way that you get them up there is your business, not mine. I have given good talks with Beamer, with Keynote, with PowerPoint, with Google Slides, with an Emacs buffer, straight out of a terminal, with a blackboard. I made these slides in LibreOffice Impress. Anything is possible if you believe in yourself. Now, are some of these easier than others? Yeah, I mean, Beamer, this could never be worth my time. I gave one solitary talk in Beamer, and I was like, I'm not going to write a program in the world's worst programming language to make my slides. I'm like, oh, let me spend 20 minutes looking up Tixie documentation to see how to move this 5 pixels to the left. It's like, that is a mouse action. But if that's how you want to spend your time, if that tickles your funny bone, good for you. It's just got to be good at the end. Nobody cares whether you did it in Beamer or Keynote or this or that. They care about what they saw and what they got out of it. Nobody cares. If you are going to do Beamer, please remove the stupid little controls from the bottom. Like, that part is embarrassing. Like, that needs to not be on the slides. Like, you have a PDF viewer, learn to use it. Though nobody's clicking those buttons. Just, it's got to go. All right, anyway, okay, cool. So there's no shortage of advice on actual literal talk structure. And in fact, Neil Krishnaswamy, who's here, gave a talk, the PLMW POPL last year. He gave a lovely talk where it's a case study of one of his talks that he did in Beamer. And he sort of goes through what's the reasoning of it. And I think you'll see there's a bunch of overlap with my framework. It's a little more nitty-gritty. It's a little more focused on technical things. I disagree with him on a few points, but there's no arguing that Neil is a very effective presenter. And I saw the talk that he breaks down. And it is a good talk, even if it's not the way I would have given the talk. I can give some high-level guidelines. I think the highest level is the most important because at the end, for a performance like this, this is your performance, and you have to do it your way. Yeah, this QR code works, but it does go straight to YouTube, so make sure autoplay is off or your volume is down. Or whatever, we'll all get to watch his talk. Okay, so I have some patterns and I have some anti-patterns. So I think the first pattern is your slides should be nice. They should be pretty. They should be done well. And like things like, oh, the bullets aren't all aligned. Or like, oh, you have the same text on 2 slides, but it shifts over by 5 pixels. I notice that. I don't like that. I find it very distracting. And like, is that petty? Hell yeah. But it's true. Like, make it neat. Like, when it's sloppy, it's just sending a bad signal. It's sending people, they're like, oh, it wasn't important enough to me to get these pixels right. I was like, oh, well, for me, it wasn't important enough for you to make it look nice for me. You didn't think I was going to, well, okay. Because it doesn't have to be pretty. The technical content's there. But like, you're making a statement about what you think is important, and I don't think that's the right statement. I think you got to make it clean. Next, I think you should use pictures, and things should be represented diagrammatically as much as possible. This just fosters human understanding. I think this is the nicer way to go. It's tough. We are a textual field. But think about it, like very, very often there's a diagrammatic way to explain it, and if you can do that, people will understand it better. And if they understand it better, they can value it. If they don't understand it, then you're in the hellhole on Joe's curve, right? You don't get the understanding, and then they can't care about a thing. They can't value a thing that they don't understand. And then lastly, ideally for like a PLCS technical talk, build slides that work even if you are not the one talking. Now, obviously this talk does not meet that criteria. This talk is like somebody mashing on their emoji keyboard. But this is not a PL technical talk. This is a different kind of talk. But ideally, you can make these slides something that anybody else can use, and then you put those on the website that Joe insisted you need to have so that other people can give presentations of your work using your slides in their groups and help spread your research and cite it and, you know, increase your stature in the community. This is, I think, a real important thing to do. There are some anti-patterns. There are things you should not do. Do not tell the story of the work, how you got to the answer. It could be that the missteps you had along the way are actually some of the portable insights. Like everyone thinks it would just work this way, but it doesn't. It can be a good insight. But nobody cares how you got there. Right? Like whenever, like it's like reading an artist's statement where it's like, I don't actually care about the practice. Show me the sculpture. Like I don't want suspense. I want the answer. Tell me that it's going to be worth my while. I would say don't write a lot of text. If you can avoid text, I would avoid text. Certainly avoid bullets. I think bullets just create a bad feeling in people. Like I have the bulleted list I just disapprove of. Like literally you take the same talk and just remove all the bullets, I think that's an improved talk. Like it could be the same lines of text, just remove. It's like there's something about like I just used the default PowerPoint theme vibe that relates to not making it pretty. Where it's like it just feels low effort to me. Maybe just me. Do not screenshot your paper's technical material. It is a very, very rare case that the presentation in the paper of some technical fact is the right way to show it in a talk. Also, the fonts aren't going to match. You think I can't tell computer modern from across a room? Like I can tell. I can absolutely tell. So like just write it out again, and as you're writing it out, you'll be like, oh, I can leave this bit out. Lie to people. Nobody cares. People expect to be lied to. They expect to be given the version that they can take away. Relatedly, this is maybe a bit of a hobby horse of mine, nobody needs your notation. Nobody needs the new. I'm sure you spent a great time writing the macros in LaTeX to get like beautiful little squiggles in math mode. Can you just use English or explain it diagrammatically? Like if I have to learn a bunch of new symbols to understand your work, how do I know that that's worth my time? A lot of people are here, we'll talk about this because of shared aesthetic values, but like, I don't think that's the right time. I don't think the talk is the time where this is really worth your while. Maybe it is, but like, I doubt it. And then finally, if you can, avoid judgments and inference rules. Is this the level of detail that you need to present your work at for it to be valuable to people? Maybe. Maybe you're doing some like super fundamental type systems work and it's all about one particular rule. But if it's not, like, nobody wants to see it. You got 20 minutes. You're going to spend that time explaining an inference rule? Is that really the best use of that time? I kind of doubt it. It could be. Is there a different way for you to show it? Diagrammatically, like positions on the page, what you learn, what you see? That's going to be better than an inference rule. Enough. So much for technology. We've talked about what a talk needs to do, and I've framed the whole time around this idea of value. You inform the audience whether the work is valuable, you educate them delivering value, you value their time, they give you their valuable attention. This is all exchanges of value. let's talk a little bit more about what I mean by value. So I should start by saying that I got this framework not that long ago. I watched a video of this guy, Larry McInerney. This is the QR code for the video. I cannot recommend this video highly enough. He's giving a talk on writing to social scientists at the University of Chicago, and it's an amazing talk. Like watching the graduate students squirm in that lecture as he talks about value is itself its own joy, but also his ideas are phenomenal. He's talking about writing, but like that's not the point. Value is about everything we do. Every bit of work we do is about value. So like I cite Larry McInerney as the person who really opened my eyes to seeing all of my work through a value lens. But like I could just as easily cite Karl Marx or Adam Smith. Like this is the framework for understanding how these things work. And like I recognize that this smacks of capitalism and it's about to get worse, but let's get in there. The core issue is that value isn't just about money. We assign value to the things we care about. And it is a very, very hard truth that by default, people do not care. Absent any other information, people are not going to care about something. You say, oh, there's a paper on this. Like, okay. I mean, the fact that it's in POPL, okay, there's some social signal there. I could be interested. But honestly, the average POPL paper, I'm not that interested in. This is rough, right? Like we're all working really hard. You finally get the paper, and then like, oh, you know, a couple years later, you got like 3 sites. It's hard to make people care about what you've done. And that's like the academic's job, right? You do work, and then just doing the work isn't enough. Having done it doesn't count for anything. The actual work is the convincing people of things. Getting them to believe that what you've done is valuable. That's the actual work that an academic has to do. And then for us, well, there's community norms around what counts there. Like you have to get the technicalities right. You have to have a well-motivated problem. We're going to evaluate value according to some set of community norms, and that's how it's going to work. But this is what it's all about. Like every research paper has at the front a value claim. It says these contributions. And it says, it's distilling in a couple of bullet points, here is what is valuable about what I have done. Every paper does this or should do this. Because that's what the game is convincing people of things. But I want to drill down and say value is very clearly not just about money. I don't know if people have seen this. Oh, it's a little hard to read. But the gist of this chart, this is excerpted from Wikipedia, that by getting a PhD, you are giving up net life earnings. Did everybody in the room know that? People familiar with this? Or even getting a master's? Like you're giving up net earnings over your lifetime. This is sort of like well documented. Like you could just go be a software engineer IC, and if what you wanted was to maximize income, you could do a good job. Like with the intellect you have, with your ability, you work your way up to management, you're going to make more money than you will as a professor in expectation, as an industrial researcher in expectation. So the fact that we're all here is a very clear evidence that value is not just about money. If everybody cared only about money, this room would be empty and the hotel would have a different thing happening. Like we're all choosing to give up money in exchange for something else that we hold valuable. And it's clear we hold it valuable in common because when I asked at the beginning, what does the PL community care about? I was able to get my top 3 items in order from the room with like, I didn't plant that was real. We all care about those things. So that's why we're here. There's some shared value. So it's not maybe as bad as I made it out earlier that like people are going to like sullen teenagers strolling into your POPL talk like, why do I got to listen to this now? Like no, they want to be there. They want it to be good. People want to get something good, and it's just your job to make sure that you give it to them. I recognize that putting this up, this is crass. Thank you. This is grim mercenary talk. I get that. But it's true. And like, there's a good spin that we're here because we care about the same thing. So if those are the things you care about, make sure that that's what you're doing. So like you might be thinking, is my work valuable? What is my motivation? How am I contributing? And I think you should think very hard about that. I think also different communities have different values. And you should think very hard about like, well, what value is the work I'm doing contributing? And is that the value of the community that I want, or do I want a broader audience? If you feel like you want to address a broader audience, you need to address these broader needs. If your work isn't addressing these, then you'll only address the community that cares about the lesser value proposition, right? Whatever the value that you're delivering. this is something I also resented as a grad student. To me, this smacked of like this application versus theory dichotomy. And I got a PhD because I wanted to do theory. And I just like absolutely rejected anything tainted with the foul reek of application. Like, why would you spend time with that? It's so gross. See, how embarrassing. JavaScript is so bad. I don't know, way more people care about JavaScript and C than the lambda calculus. There's room for a lot of different stuff, but you have to think about what is my audience going to be, and then you have to be happy with the choice that you've made. So you're going to pick a kind of work to do that will contribute a certain kind of value, and then if that's the audience, then you're going to get the audience that cares about that. And that's something that you should be constantly reflecting on, because this value framework doesn't just inform the work that you have done, but it informs the work that you will do. You should think about the things that you value, and is the work that you're doing achieving the ends that you care about. And if you feel stuck with a small audience, if you feel like, I want to reach more people with my work, I want to influence the world in a bigger way, you can change what you're doing. Now, to be clear, rather than a theory-practice division, I much prefer thinking about things in a sort of problem-solution approach. And I think when you frame things this way, it's much easier to find big communities because you pick a problem that a bunch of people have. And if your solution actually works, people will care about it if you can get them to understand why your solution works. Right? The more generally you can frame the problems and plausibly you can frame your solution as a general solution, the bigger the audience you're going to get. And if that's what you wanted, congratulations. Right? If you're going to work on a technique, you're only going to get the community that cares about that technique because people need context. Like if you have a new way of doing logical relations, that's going to be a tough sell outside of the community that knows logical relations well enough and to want new kinds of them. So you've kind of got to choose. Okay. I've given a bunch of advice, and I've given some concrete rules along the way. I should say that I've seen very effective talks break these rules. So don't over-index on this. Right? It's your performance. It's not my performance. I'm going to do it my way. I think this framework that I've given around value is really the right framework. I think the thing you have to think about when you're giving a talk is, how am I going to communicate what I'm doing is valuable? Because people are going to give me their literal, most precious, most valuable resource, which is their time and attention. The stakes of a talk are very high because people are trusting you with their time and attention. So don't waste it. So thank you for your time and attention, and I hope this has been valuable for you.